Hello everyone, my name is Megan Rebello and I will be discussing the conservation and management of the Nassau Grouper, including recommendations for its further protection. To start off, the Nassau Grouper is a common reef fish found throughout the Caribbean Sea, Bermuda, and parts of southern Florida, including the Florida Keys. It was a common species found in the U.S. but has since been overexploited and is considered commercially extinct throughout its range due to intense overfishing. The largest threat to the species is overfishing of spawning aggregation sites, where the species gather in thousands to reproduce. Other threats include pollution and climate change that affect the health of the coral reef habitats. Protection status should be changed to endangered since their populations continue to decrease rapidly. The life history of the Nassau grouper include that it is a reef fish characterized from other grouper species by its vertical bars and dark coloring on the dorsal section of the body. They have larger eyes with various color variations. Most adult grouper exhibit a beige coloring with 5 dark vertical bars, a black splotch on the base of the tail, and rows of black dots below each eye. They can also be distinguished from the dark brown band that runs through each eye and connects to the band on the top of the head in front of the dorsal fin. These fish can change colors during their reproductive phases of spawning, also known as bicolor, when the top of their body turns dark while the ventral side turns white. Nassau groupers have an average lifespan of up to 29 years and can reach up to 4 feet in length, with sexual maturity occurring when fish are between 15 and 20 inches in length, or 4 to 5 years of age. Feeding behaviors and preferences result from the body size of the grouper. Small juvenile fish typically feed on various smaller fish and invertebrates like shrimp, while larger adults will only feed on fish. They are not relatively picky with their prey as they are considered ambush predators. They are managed under the jurisdiction of NOAA Fisheries and the Caribbean Fishery Management Council. The species is considered managed through the banning of fishing of the species throughout the U.S., Puerto Rico, and U.S. Virgin Islands, increasing awareness for conservation of spawning sites, increasing regulations to decrease fishing pressures, and consistently regulating regions during spawning season. Nassau grouper were targets of fish spawn aggregation site fishing, or FSA fishing. This has put the species population in rapid decline since 1980 and has continued their decline by more than 80%. Data has been recorded for locations of spawning aggregations with the range of the Nassau grouper. This includes previous spawning aggregation sites that have since disappeared due to overfishing and spawning sites that are still being fished. Nassau grouper spawning aggregation data has been collected by many historical sources, including commercial fishermen, fishing vessels, Department of Fisheries, Government of Bahamas, and scientific research. Under the Endangered Species Act, they are currently listed as threatened, while under the International Union of Conservation of Nature, they are listed as critically endangered. There have been a significant reduction from historical populations, with less than 20 out of 50 well-known spawning aggregation sites within their range remaining. Possession of the Nassau grouper is prohibited in the U.S., but the species may still be vulnerable to bycatch by longlines and fishing traps. Scarce amounts of data have been reported of populations, including threats to overfishing and bycatch. Since the U.S. fishery has been closed for the species, bycatch may still be a threat throughout the range, and management practices have been put in place to further protect the existing populations. The practices including building awareness of spawning aggregation sites and their conservation through education and outreach programs, being consistent with regulations during the spawning season, stricter enforcement on current fishing regulations, and further protection of waters and reef habitats where the species commonly reside. Research methods used to access the species include annual underwater surveys that can help to determine size, location, and abundance of the species. The surveys can also help by monitoring coral reefs, identifying status of new and existing aggregation sites, and using population genetics to research population size, genetic diversity, and geographic ranges. The Nassau grouper are listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act and are in current danger of becoming extinct due to increasing low numbers. Nassau grouper have been a target species for human consumption and have been fished most in the spawning aggregations, which often exceed thousands of fish. This reduces recovery rates of the population due to late sexual maturity. Sedimentation, pollution, and climate change from land development and human factors have also led to declines in the health of the coral reef habitats, leaving them at an extra risk of extinction. In regard to the Nassau grouper inhabiting the same locations throughout their lifetime, they are vulnerable to bycatch throughout their range, intensifying the decline of the species further. While Nassau Grouper cannot be landed in U.S. waters, they are fished in the Caribbean, which may contribute to population decline. With threats to the Nassau Grouper continuing to intensify, the protection status of the species under the Endangered Species Act should be increased from threatened to endangered to allow proper protection of the species throughout its range. Other recommendations for further protection involve banning fishing in the Caribbean and establishing marine protected areas throughout their range. Further research regarding spawning aggregation sites and protection of reef habitats would be beneficial to the management of the species. Fishing management protocols must also be in agreement across their range to minimize impacts to the existing population. Thank you for listening.